everybody, and welcome back to my channel, Wild Like a Flower Gardening. My name is Sarah, and I wanted to film an extra special video for you guys to really talk to you about the month of April and why it's so special to me. So if you didn't know already, the month of April is Native Plant Month. And last year, I was really excited because Ohio was the first state to introduce April as Native Plant Month. But this year, it's gone national. So I can celebrate it with everybody across the country, and we can all get excited about native plants. And I want to just take a moment to talk about what Native Plant Month really means to me and why I feel that it's so special and important. You know, if you've been following along, I've had this interesting journey with native plants. Last year, I already wanted to grow a container garden at my apartment. I already wanted to try to grow native plants in pots. But with the pandemic starting, that kind of lit it on fire, so to speak. And last April, my birthday is in April. And I had a lonely quarantine birthday. I think I went rollerblading down the bike path to go check out spring ephemeral wildflowers. But other than that, I didn't get to celebrate it with my friends and family. And let's be honest, I'm probably going to have a quarantine birthday this year too, but this year I get to celebrate Native Plant Month on a national level with all of my new native plant friends that I've met through making my cool Instagram and making this YouTube account. I think building this community of native plant loving people has really helped me through this time of quarantine when I don't really get to go out and make new friends in person. And I'm really excited for the friends that I have been able to make, particularly on Instagram. My best friend Sean, she loves native plants and bees just like me. But I made some new friends too. My friend Amy, she takes amazing pictures of wildlife, and her birthday is in April as well. So what better way to celebrate our quarantine birthdays and Native Plant Month other than to talk about how awesome native plants are and to get them in the ground? For those of us who have been working with native plants for a little while now, I think it's really important to recognize that we may be having more conversations about native plants with first-timers this year because Native Plant Month went national. And if you're joining me and you haven't grown native plants before, I'm really excited to have you. I think one of the first things we should really talk about when it comes to native plants is the best thing you can do is just get them in the ground. You don't need to overwhelm people with a ton of information and scientific names. You just want to encourage people to get them in their gardens. And if you're new to native plants, all you really need to do is start by figuring out what are the common pollinators that you would find in your backyard and what native plants they require. Purchase seeds or try to find native plant starts from native plant nurseries, or sometimes you can find them at farmers markets. And just by getting them in the ground, you will learn so much as the growing season continues, because you'll learn how it looks at different stages in its development, what it looks like when it blooms, what it looks like when it matures to seeds. If you're interested in seed saving, you may be able to learn a little bit about that. But the first step to celebrating native plants and supporting wildlife is just getting these native plants in the ground. Learning scientific names and understanding how to identify these plants in the wild, that comes eventually. Just putting them in the ground, though, is the first and most important step, I feel, in a native plant journey. And you don't necessarily need to get rid of your non-native plants. You do want to make sure that you're not growing things like barberry or invasive honeysuckle species, because you can still sometimes find those at nurseries too. But if you love zinnias or dahlias, you can still keep those. Just make a little extra space for native plants. My mom and my aunt, they are avid gardeners. My aunt loves to take me on garden tours around her house to see her different flower beds, and they're beautiful. But when I introduced them to host plants and that concept that without host plants you don't see caterpillars, it blew their mind. These women have been gardening their whole lives, and they didn't understand that to have caterpillars you need host plants. So we put host plants in the ground, and my aunt's garden tours turned into caterpillar tours. And she wants to grow as many plants as possible to feature different butterflies, to see who she can have in her garden. And she's excited. And I'm excited that I've been able to teach her a little bit about native plants and their importance and inspire her to grow them. My mom got a kick out of all the caterpillars growing in her gardens after I installed a ton of native plants. And taking her out to see the eggs and the tiny caterpillars. and then eventually seeing the adult butterflies fluttering through. My mom kept her zinnias, her sunflowers, the plants that she loves, her irises. But we just made space for a lot of native plants to support our pollinators and other wildlife. And that's something that everybody can do. I was so excited this summer to grow native plants in pots and to prove to myself and other people that it's possible. You can have native wildflowers in whatever capacity you are able to grow them. Whether you have in-ground growing space or you just need to be able to get your hands on some big pots, it's possible. And I think that there's no better way to celebrate native plants, and April being Native Plant Month, other than to put these plants in the ground. Do your research, find out what these butterflies and specialist bees and other important pollinators may be in your yard, and find out what native plants, they require. Go to your native plant nursery, see if you can order some seeds, and get them going in your own garden spaces. I think that would be the best birthday gift for my second quarantine birthday that I could ever get, is you guys telling me what native plants you're making space for this year. What pollinators you're trying to support. That would just mean, honestly, the most to me, because that would make my heart so happy. And if you have questions about growing native plants, or you're not sure how best to articulate native plants to newbies, talk to me. I would love to have these conversations. Because I know that native plants can be a little overwhelming, but it's just important to know that you should grow them. That's the first step, knowing that they're important, recognizing that they're important. Then you find out what pollinators are in your area, what plants they need, and you go from there. You don't need to have the scientific names memorized. You don't need to be able to identify them out here in the wild. Just putting them in your garden will allow you to learn more firsthand rather than having to look things up. So I encourage you to celebrate Native Plant Month with me, my friend Sean, my friend Amy, and the rest of us who love native plants by putting them in your gardens this year. Because there's no better time to start than now. So I wish you the happiest of gardening this year and the best of luck with your native plants. Thank you for joining me.